like the voice of God. I heard 30. I can't believe it. The first time in my life, I heard 30.
So they're going to show.
No, I didn't. I heard 30. I'm so happy. Give me back my hearing. Not just once in my life. Give it permanently back. Mr. Ferguson must be a medium. He's jamming the guy. Oh, Mama D. Hey, welcome back. And did you notice, folks, for the first time post-Katrina, we're doing an artist review. This is once in a while. We used to do it at least once a month pre-Katrina, or once every other month, where instead of featuring a brand new restaurant, we feature a brand new artist and his or her works. And we've got a great gentleman artist for you today that I think you're really going to love. This is our post-Katrina show. We had Katrina last week. We did the same. We were really reticent what to do with Katrina, so we just showed the same existing show. But at the same time, we wanted to do something better, but still give tribute to Katrina. So the artist today, you'll see, will be doing it, but from the positive side. His present series is actually dedicated to the houses of New Orleans, but not the damaged properties of Katrina. So we're looking at it as uplifting, and we've had several other artists in our city that did that, and we're going to talk to them about that as well. We're not doing any musical guests today, so it's strictly going to focus on the art, and we're hoping you enjoy it. We have today, I want to recognize and introduce to you Mr. Bruce Fall. Bruce, welcome to the show.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Bruce, tell us a little bit of yourself. I know even though people haven't heard your accent, you're definitely not a native, but I know you're a wannabe native. So tell us a little bit about where you came from and how long you've been here, stuff like that. How'd you get here?
Well, I've traveled about growing up when I was younger, from being born in Florida to moving along the eastern seaboard, and came down to New Orleans in 2000. Kind of compared a little bit to Charleston, South Carolina, where I used to live, except for on a grander scale. I love the architecture, the food, the music, and the art community, so I figured it was an excellent place to kind of involve myself with.
And both of those cities really give a lot of emphasis to your current series, which I just mentioned earlier, so that's great. So whether you're talking about something in your mind from historic Charleston or whether currently or some composite here in New Orleans. Well, let's talk a little bit more about your background. How did you get interested in painting? I always have to ask that, how people choose or formalize their career.
Well, I've always had kind of a creative thing, I guess, going on in my life. It's been kind of a dual career thing between food and art. Most of my life, I've just involved myself.
When was the first time you noticed an interest in art, whether it's just visually or actually wanting to do it? I'm really just fascinated how people, make these type of decisions. How far back do you think you really, was it high school, college, or whether you're a child, your family collected, or how did you first really think that you were going to be interested in art per se?
It was really in high school that I got into art as a focus of what I wanted to study a bit,
and did you start actually painting that early, or did you just, start just appreciation of art?
It was really all kinds of artwork that I did, from drawing to painting to crafty kind of wood burning to, almost anything I could do something that was a creative visual sort of thing I was involved with. So. And it sort of progressed through the years. I went to college. I I was a graphic designer on computers and did page layout and design for a magazine. And
Fun. Because today a lot of our artists are lost to that because that's so much more of a lucrative, steady income that I think a lot of them, take the easy way out and go to that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but go to the commercialism of that rather than having to suffer the slings and woes of a self-created person and entity. And I think we lose a lot of really good art because of that. Not that they don't do good on their own respect. Let me ask you another question with regard to that. So you said you started getting interested along those lines. Now, most of the work that you're doing now, and I know you said you had other series, and one that really tweaks me while you were here in New Orleans was you actually did some cemeteries in New Orleans, huh?
That's right. I went to, I visited all the cemeteries in town pretty much, and I love funereal art in it by itself. I was kind of attracted to the crumbling tombs sometimes, sort of nature overcoming man's creation to some degree, as kind of a theme to that series. But I've always had kind of an interest in cemeteries for historical reasons as well as for art.
Yeah, I know. I recognize a similar. I used to take a lot of photographs, and especially going around the country, the cemeteries are so different. Or like seeing a beautiful cemetery in snow, and it's just so peaceful and so different than what we see. And yet ours are so unique. So I certainly understand that. But we don't want to dwell on the past. So we want to talk about the present. And as everyone knows here in the city, maybe 15 years ago, probably back in the 80s or 90s, on the scene in New Orleans came a gentleman, an artist that everyone recognizes, Michelopolis, which started taking a look at our New Orleans homes and buildings and putting his beautiful bent to it, and I do mean literally waves and bends, so that it oftentimes looked like it was through an optical or fisheye lens, but just became extremely successful, much so that it became a real passion of a lot of artists. One of the artists we had locally, a Brazilian artist, Martin Luke, was doing similar situations. I've got a piece by a young lady, Lynn Elms, on art. So it's become very, very interested not only to the artists from their interest in the architecture of New Orleans, but also to the audience, to the buyers. People want to display magnificent pieces, whether it's their own home that they maybe have customized or someone else's. And of course, a lot of our restaurants and buildings are featuring these homes as great artwork. So the architecture is certainly well respected, well known, whether you're interested in from art, from the architectural perspective or whatever, just to have something hanging up there. So we're glad to see you. When I was driving down Magazine Street the other day, I passed by a great art store that Bruce actually works and exhibits out of. I've been there several times to buy some supplies and never really took notice of anything else when I was focusing on, and all of a sudden I walked down from a restaurant we were looking to bring on the show, and there in the front bay window were several pieces. So I went on inside, introduced myself, and tell us a little bit more about, I know the name of the art store is National
Art and Hobby.
And whereabouts on Magazine Street for people if they want to see you?
It's, I want to say the 5800 block of Magazine.
Okay. For those restaurant buffs like myself, it's diagonal from the restaurant Martinique, which was on X number of years ago. I'm sure most people know Martinique Bistro by now because it's very well in the community. But right near, I believe, State or Nashville. I think it's one or two blocks.
Right between State and Nashville.
Okay. And by the way, folks, we want to tell you, we're publishing two things. One, since Bruce doesn't have a website, we're actually putting his phone number up there in case you want to call and ask him, not so much during the show. Well, during the show you can as well, but at home or later if you want to call him and ask him any questions about his art or where they can see it or to purchase. Why don't you go ahead and get that phone number out? I know our director's gone ahead and show it, Mr. Perkins. What's the phone number to you, Bruce?
It's 504-250-8849.
8849. And also, our director, Mr. Perkins, is putting up our regular phone number, so we haven't done this in a while. If you want to call in and would like to talk to Bruce or myself anything about art or his particulars, don't hesitate. But that's what we're here for, to give you a better education. But before we go anything further, I really want to get into actually taking a look. Is there anything else you want to tell the folks? I know we want to talk about not only that you're focusing on homes, but I think your media selection, I think you're looking at oils. Is that right, for the most part?
Right. I've worked in acrylics, and I've worked in pen and ink and pencil.
But instead of oil being a paintbrush style, you call it what, oil sticks?
Right. They're oil bars or oil sticks.
I call them Crayolas, and that's a terrible name to say.
And a Crayola is kind of an oil pastel on its most basic term, but oil paint in the stick form is relatively new, since I think the 50s or 60s, and it's just a little different process to apply paint to.
Okay, excellent. Also, folks, as you know, art has gotten a lot more casual, even in the formal stage of oil. And a lot of artists are no longer framing work. You can either frame it yourself or not frame it. So a while back, something called gallery framing came along, where the artist would actually wrap to continue the painting around the perimeter of the art, so you could hang it. It would be like the frame would actually be a continuance of the painting. What Bruce is doing is something like what I would call museum mounting, but he's painting on a board without a frame, but setting it up so it distances itself from the wall, so it's perfectly suitable to hang directly in your home office. How are you calling this? And we're going to show people as we talk. So tell us a little bit about that process, please.
Well, the paintings are done on a 4-ply 100% cotton museum board, which is an archival material. I then use an acid-free adhesive.
And that's important, because obviously we don't want things to be turning yellow or dusting and stuff like that. So he's doing the stuff, so this is something that doesn't require glass or a frame. That's what we're showing you. And we're going to go ahead and just flip around and show you the back of one to show you what we're talking about. As you can see, it's sturdily framed here with wood. See that? And again, of course, he's already got his convenient chain for you to hang. But notice, what we call museum mounting is something that is beyond the back. In other words, instead of a painting, when you have a painting or a print and in the back it just lays flat, if something is distanced out, it's distanced by something. And this is what we do here. So the actual painting will be three-dimensional, set off of the wall, won't lay flat with it, because of not only the addition of the board for sturdiness, but also to give it that dimensional look. Now let's just take a look at the first of the series of your New Orleans, we don't want to call them Katrina New Orleans cottages and homes. And I'm going to say that this one to me is monochromatic, a lot of brown bungalow. It looks a little bit like a log house when I got up close to it, but I know we don't have many log houses here. First of all, let's tell people what kind of size and what was your inspiration, any information you want to tell them about this first painting.
Well, it's 32 by 40 inches. And
nice size.
All the paintings I brought today are 32 by 40 inches.
Excellent. Okay, great.
It's kind of the first in the series where I was just getting to learn more about the medium of the oil sticks and how they apply to a surface. I use like an acrylic background and then apply the oil on top of that.
Oh, okay. So this is really mixed media. It's oil and acrylic.
It is somewhat mixed media. Okay. And then the other thing I really wanted to do is, it's not so much the house itself that was important to me when I painted this, but just learning again how the oil bars apply to the museum board and how the colors can interact and how I can work with them too.
So it's really your experimental, your beta site to make sure things were going to work out so you could proceed in that direction.
Right, and then you'll probably see some sort of a progression in these paintings.
Okay, well, let's do that. Let's go ahead and move. So we passed the brown bombshell, and let's take a look at the second one. Again, the same size, and then this one just the opposite. I was saying this to me looks like a typical French Quarter Creole cottage at night, but with those day glowing colors that it just glows without any type of lighting at all. Tell us a little bit about it. I'll make a couple other comments about it as well that I liked about it.
Well, something that you mentioned is this day glow, and that was part of my thing as well, is working these colors to see what colors I liked, what worked, what didn't. I did experiments that I wouldn't show anyone after I was done with the painting, and the other ones that I could, look back and say, yeah, I like that. Well, they're here. But this particular one, I started